Madison. Welcome back to another Pastry Perks. Today we're going to be talking about softened butter and why it's so important in baking. So first things first, I have my butter here. For today's recipe, I'm going to be making sugar cookies. So the first thing I always want to do is make sure that I have softened butter, because softening the butter and creaming it with the sugar is typically the first step in a lot of recipes, but especially with cookies. So I've had my butter sitting out for about an hour now at room temperature, and it's nice and soft. You can tell softened butter is ready when it's soft to the touch but not melted. So of course you would know if it's melted, but you would also know if it's way too cold. If it's just coming out of the fridge and you put it on the table, it's going to be rock hard, and that's going to be no fun to mix, especially by hand, because your hand's going to get really sore, it's going to be really cold, and it won't evenly distribute throughout your dough. You'll have a lumpy dough with lots of butter clumps, so as we know, butter is a fatty ingredient. It contains a lot of fat in it. So when we're mixing it with the sugar in typically the first step, it allows your butter and sugar to combine much more evenly. And when you're mixing the butter and the sugar, if your butter is softened at room temperature, which it should be, it allows little air pockets to combine in your dough, which will give you that nice light and fluffy cookie or cupcake, whatever it is that you're making. So it's very important that you have softened butter. Otherwise, for example, cookies like I'm making here today, if I had melted butter, my cookies would spread a lot faster. They'd spread more than I'd want them to. So especially sugar cookies, like where I'm going to be cutting out the shapes, you want to keep that nice even shape. So if you have melted butter, it's not going to solidify in the dough, which will cause your cookie to spread and it won't look as nice. And same goes with the texture. If you have melted butter versus room temperature butter, the texture is going to be thrown off. So you really just want to make sure that you have softened room temperature butter to get the best results. If you are in a rush and you need to bake something fast and you don't have time to let your butter sit out for about an hour at room temp, you can always throw it in the microwave for a few seconds just to get it soft, and then let it sit out for a few more minutes after that. So you don't have to wait the full hour, so it gives you a little bit more time to be able to bake and not have to wait the full hour for your butter to soften, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw my butter in my bowl, start to cream it, show you guys what it should look like, and I'm going to mix it with powdered sugar. Following my sugar cookie recipe, I start by creaming the butter and powdered sugar. A lot of other recipes will call for granulated sugar, which is totally fine. It's going to end up looking the same way as butter should look when it's creamed together with sugar, okay? So first things first, when it comes to creaming butter, you can use a paddle attachment to your bowl, you can use a wooden spoon, a whisk. I like to use a fork. So simple, I know, but I find that it helps me mix the butter and the sugar more evenly, whereas a whisk, I would have to clean the middle of it out, continue to whisk, clean the middle, and a lot of clumps of powdered sugar or butter get stuck in there. So I just use a fork. And I'm also going to be using my silicone spatula because it's so important with most baking that you're going to be doing that you continue to scrape the sides as you go. Because when you do this, you are getting any ingredients left on the side and putting it back into the bowl to be mixed into the dough. And that just ensures that you're going to have a nice, evenly distributed dough. Okay? Alright. So I'm going to throw my butter in the bowl. And I won't be showing you how to make the cookies all the way through. You can find this recipe at baketivity.com under our blogs. We have so many awesome recipes on there, and the sugar cookies will be on there. But this video is mostly about creaming butter and why it's important, okay? So I want to make sure that we get through all of that in this video. Okay, so I have my butter in my bowl, and as you can see, it's very softened. It kind of loses its shape when you put it in the bowl and when you take it out of the package because it's softened. It should be that way, okay? And you should be able to just easily run your fork, or if you're using a whisk spoon, just be able to easily run it through the butter without it being too cold and giving you a hard time when you're trying to mix it. And on the other hand, it shouldn't be too soft where it's just melting in your bowl, okay? So this is what cream butter looks like, okay? And I would just continue this until it's completely nice and creamy and I'm able to mix all of it with no problem. And then I would go ahead and add my sugar. So just to give you guys a bit of a close-up. All right, so my butter mixture is looking great. I'm gonna go ahead and add in my powdered sugar. And it's totally up to you if you're mixing by hand especially. If you wanted to mix your powdered sugar or granulated sugar in a little at a time, that way it's easier for you to work in smaller quantities, you can do that. I'm just gonna go ahead, I have a big enough bowl here, so if any of it makes a little bit of a mess, I have a bowl to catch it. So I'm just gonna continue to work with all the powdered sugar at once, okay? And this might take a little bit, especially if you're doing it by hand. If you're using a bowl like this that you can throw an attachment on, absolutely do it. But I want to be able to show you guys that you can cream butter by hand, and it is super easy. It just might take a few more minutes if you're doing it by hand, okay? All right. See, I have a few clumps here, but that's no problem at all. The more that you work the butter into the sugar, it's going to cream together nice and easy. My hand doesn't hurt, it's going very smoothly, okay? If your butter was very cold, it would be clumpy and your hand would feel like it's about to fall off from trying to mix it so much. Okay. I already see the mixture coming together. Just after about a minute of me mixing, that's all it takes. And I'm going to take my silicone spatula. As I had mentioned earlier, these are super important to use when you're mixing, to scrape down the sides of the bowl and just make sure that you're mixing everything in there evenly, especially once you get the dry ingredients in there with some baking powder, baking soda, whatever leveling agents you're using. You want to make sure that those especially are evenly distributed, okay? And you know, the same goes with salt. So really every ingredient is just as important as the other. We'll be talking about the importance of salt in baking in another pastry perk coming up. So for now, we'll just continue with the importance of creaming butter and room temp butter. All right, so I've only been mixing for, I'd say, a little over a minute. And like I said, it's super easy. It's not giving me a hard time or making my hand hurt or any of that. It's just going nice and smoothly. Okay, and this is how my butter and powdered sugar mixture looks. It's nice and smooth. And think about all those little air pockets we're getting in there that are gonna give us that nice, light cookie texture. All right, and that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you stay tuned for all of our other pastry perk videos. And again, if you want this sugar cookie recipe, go on to baketivity.com, and under our blogs, we have a bunch of different recipes, this one included. These are the best sugar cookies ever, so I recommend you go get that recipe. And anyway, I hope you guys learned something about room temperature butter, why it's important, and what really happens when you mix it with sugar, okay? Thank you guys so much.